Have you ever felt something was wrong, even when everyone told you it was all in your head? The question echoed in Sienna Caldwell's mind as she stood by her apartment window, watching the golden red leaves spiral down onto the uneven sidewalks below. It was late October in Boston, that brief, bittersweet window before the city surrendered to the gray cold. Her building stood at the edge of a lively neighborhood, brick facades, busy coffee shops, the chatter of students and professionals blending with the distant rumble of the T. Sienna's apartment. 3 floors above street level, felt like a little sanctuary. Warm lights, shelves crowded with travel souvenirs, a faint scent of cinnamon from the candle flickering on her kitchen counter. She checked her phone, then the oven timer. The dinner party was set for 8, and it was already past 7:30. Roasted butternut squash soup simmered on the stove. The table was laid with mismatched yet charming plates, wine glasses winking in the lamplight. Sienna fussed with the napkins, folding and refolding, trying to keep her hands busy. Behind her, the front door clicked. Elias Reyes stepped in, balancing a bottle of wine and his messenger bag, hair slightly mussed from the wind. He shrugged off his coat, his movements practiced but unhurried. Sienna watched him as he set the wine on the kitchen island, his back to her a moment longer than usual. "Hey," she said, summoning a smile. "You made it." Elias smiled back, the corners of his eyes crinkling in that familiar way. "Of course I did. Wouldn't miss your famous soup for anything." He set his bag down and walked over, pressing a kiss to her cheek. But Sienna felt it, the faintest pause before his smile, the way he avoided her gaze just a second too long. She noticed, because she always noticed. It was part of her job in marketing, reading between the lines, catching the details others missed. Lately, those details had been piling up at home, too. She busied herself with the bread basket, glancing at him sidelong. "Long day at work?" Elias shrugged, rolling his sleeves up. "The usual. Jasper's still gunning for that new client, so everyone's pulling extra hours." He said it lightly, but his eyes flickered to his phone, which he placed face down on the counter. Sienna's fingers stilled. "You've been working late a lot," she said softly. Not quite a question. He didn't look up. "It's just the season. You know how it gets." It was an answer she'd heard before. She wanted to believe it, but the anxious knot in her chest tightened. She remembered last week, plans canceled last minute, Elias texting that he was caught up at the office. The night before, he'd stepped outside to take a call. His voice hushed. That morning, she'd found him distracted, scrolling through emails over breakfast, barely touching his coffee. For a moment, Sienna hesitated. She didn't want to be the kind of person who snooped, who doubted for no reason. But her heart nagged at her, urging her to ask more, dig deeper. She set the bread down, her voice gentle but firm. "Elias, is everything okay? You seem different lately. I just want to make sure we're good." He smiled, a little too quickly. "Sienna, you're overreacting. It's just work, really." He laughed, but it sounded forced. "You know I'd tell you if something was wrong." She tried to match his smile, but doubt crept in, quiet and persistent. The apartment, usually alive with warmth and laughter, suddenly felt smaller, the glow of the lamps unable to chase away the shadow settling in her chest. A knock at the door broke the tension. Sienna exhaled, brushing her hands on her jeans, grateful for the interruption. She opened the door to Maya Lynn, her best friend since college, bundled in a navy coat and holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Maya's eyes sparkled as she stepped in, hugging Sienna tightly. "Your place smells amazing," Maya said, handing her the flowers. "Are you sure you're not secretly a chef?" Sienna laughed, the tension easing just a little. "Just a marketing manager with too many cookbooks," she joked, arranging the sunflowers in a vase. She caught Elias's eye. He gave her a reassuring nod, as if to say, "See, everything's normal." But Sienna couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. She moved through the motions of hosting, pouring wine, serving soup, laughing at Maya's stories about a city council meeting gone off the rails. Elias chimed in now and then, but Sienna noticed the way he glanced at his phone under the table, the slight hesitation before he answered questions about work. As the evening wore on, guests filtered in and out. Mrs. Lords Carmichael, her retired neighbor from down the hall, stopped by with a plate of homemade cookies and a warm hug. "It's good to see young people enjoying themselves," she said, her eyes twinkling at Sienna. "Don't let the world make you forget joy, dear." Sienna smiled, but the words lingered, bittersweet. After the last guest left, Sienna began to clear the table. Elias offered to help, stacking plates and humming under his breath. She watched him, searching his face for clues, for the warmth and openness she'd always known. Instead, she found a wall, a polite, reassuring mask. She dried her hands on a dish towel, summoning her courage. "Elias, can we talk for a minute?" He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. Sure, what's up? She hesitated, then spoke. I feel like you're pulling away. There are all these little things. The late nights, the phone calls you take outside, missing dinner plans. I know your job is busy, but I can't help feeling like something's off. Elias sighed, setting a plate down. Sienna, I promise, you're making a bigger deal out of this than it is. I'm just swamped at work. That's all. He held her gaze, steady but guarded. You know I care about you. Please don't let your imagination run wild. Sienna tried to believe him, but the words felt heavy, more like dismissal than comfort. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Later, as the city quieted outside and the last traces of laughter faded from the apartment, Sienna lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark, save for the faint glow of streetlights sneaking through the curtains. She listened to Elias's even breathing beside her, wishing she could quiet the storm inside her own chest. Had she really imagined it all? Was she reading too much into late nights and missed plans? Or was her heart trying to warn her of something she couldn't yet see? Rain began to tap against the window, soft and persistent. Sienna closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. The question pulsed in her mind, stubborn and unyielding. Was she overreacting, or was her intuition trying to protect her? The next morning, the city was washed clean and gray. Sienna made coffee, moving through the motions with practiced efficiency. Elias joined her at the kitchen counter, scanning his phone between sips. He kissed her on the forehead, murmured something about an early meeting, and left before she could ask anything more. Alone, Sienna wandered to the window, watching the city come alive. Joggers dodging puddles, delivery trucks double-parked, neighbors hurrying beneath umbrellas. She felt untethered, drifting between what she saw and what she felt, unsure which reality to trust. A soft knock on the door startled her. Mrs. Carmichael stood in the hall, holding a small tin of cookies. I thought you might need a little sweetness this morning, she said kindly. Sienna accepted the tin, managing a smile. Thank you, Mrs. Carmichael. That's so thoughtful. The older woman studied her face, concern flickering in her eyes. Are you all right, dear? You seem unsettled. Sienna hesitated, then nodded. Just a lot on my mind, I guess. Mrs. Carmichael patted her hand. Trust your heart, Sienna. It's wiser than you think. As she closed the door, Sienna felt a rush of emotion, gratitude, anxiety, and something deeper, an ache she couldn't name. She set the cookies on the counter, her thoughts swirling. Throughout the week, the pattern continued. Elias worked late, came home tired, his explanations always just enough to quiet her questions, but never enough to silence her doubts. He was kind, attentive in small ways, but distant in others. Sienna found herself watching him, searching for cracks in the facade. At work, her focus slipped. She found herself rereading emails, forgetting meetings, staring out the window as downtown Boston buzzed below. Maya noticed, cornering her in the break room with a cup of chai. You've been off lately, Maya said, concern softening her usually direct tone. Everything okay at home? Sienna hesitated, unsure how much to share. I don't know. Elias has been different. Working late, taking calls outside, being vague about plans. I keep telling myself it's nothing, but your gut says otherwise. Maya finished for her, nodding. You've always had good instincts, Sai. Don't ignore them, but also, don't jump to conclusions. Talk to him. Sienna nodded, grateful for Maya's grounding presence, but the knot in her chest refused to loosen. That night, she tried again to bridge the gap. She made Elias's favorite pasta, lit candles, played his favorite jazz playlist. When he came home, she greeted him with a smile, trying to mask her worry. He noticed, of course. You didn't have to go all out, he said, sounding tired but appreciative. Sienna shrugged, trying to keep it light. Just wanted to do something nice. They ate in comfortable silence, but Sienna felt the distance between them, a quiet chasm neither seemed able to cross. After dinner, Elias took a call on the balcony, voice low and urgent. Sienna watched him through the glass, her heart pounding. When he came back in, she tried one last time. Is there something you want to tell me? She asked quietly. Elias shook his head, smiling. You're overthinking again, Sienna. I promise everything's fine. She nodded, but the words felt hollow. That night, as she lay awake listening to the city breathe outside her window, Sienna realized she was caught between two worlds, the reality Elias offered and the truth her heart insisted on. The next morning, Sienna found herself staring at her reflection, searching for answers in her own eyes. She remembered Mrs. Carmichael's words, "Trust your heart. It's wiser than you think." She wondered, Had anyone else ever doubted themselves when their instincts told them something was off? As the camera lingered on Sienna's conflicted expression, the world outside her window moved on, unaware of the quiet storm brewing in her heart and the questions that demanded answers. A brisk wind whipped through the narrow streets as Sienna hurried down the steps of her brownstone the next morning, pulling her scarf tight beneath her chin. The city was waking up, bakers unloading trays of bread into storefronts, cyclists weaving past delivery trucks, the distant clang of a streetcar bell. But Sienna's mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying the previous night like a loop she couldn't shut off. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Elias's distracted face, heard his gentle but firm reassurance. "You're overthinking things, Sienna. Work's just been crazy, that's all." But if that was true, why did his words feel so carefully measured? Why did his phone seem to light up with messages he never showed her? Why did her heart keep insisting something wasn't right? The elevator doors slid open on the 12th floor of her office building, swallowing her into the familiar hum of keyboards and muted conversation. Sienna tried to focus on her work, drafting campaign proposals, answering emails, reviewing budgets, but her mind kept drifting. Each time her phone buzzed, she half hoped it was Elias, ready to explain everything, and half feared what he might say. By noon, she couldn't take it anymore. She texted Maya, "Lunch, please." Within 20 minutes, Sienna was tucked into a corner booth at Finch and Fig, a cozy coffee shop with marble-topped tables and walls lined with mismatched books. Sunlight filtered in through the front windows, painting Maya's face in warm gold as she arrived, cheeks flushed from the walk. "Sienna, are you okay?" Maya asked, concern softening her usually brisk tone. Sienna hesitated, swirling her iced coffee with a straw. "I don't know. I feel crazy even bringing it up. Try me," Maya said, squeezing Sienna's hand across the table. Sienna inhaled slowly. "Elias is different lately. He's on his phone all the time, always working late. Last night he brushed me off again. I asked him directly and he said I was overreacting, but..." Her voice cracked around the word. "I can't shake this feeling." Maya listened, nodding. "Has anything concrete happened? Like actual evidence? Or is it just a vibe?" "It's more than a vibe." He flinched when I walked in on a call. He's vague when I ask where he's been. I even caught him deleting messages, Maya. "I know it sounds bad." Maya frowned, thoughtful. "Look, you know I'm Team Sienna forever, but sometimes people get stressed and weird when work's tough. Have you tried talking to him? Really talking? Not just asking, but telling him how you feel?" "I have, but I always end up feeling guilty. He's so calm about it, like I'm being unreasonable. Maybe I am." Maya leaned forward, voice gentle. "You're not crazy. You're intuitive, but don't let your fears control the narrative before you have all the facts. Maybe give him a chance to open up, without accusations, and if you need backup, I'm here. Just say the word." Sienna managed a weak smile. Maya had always been her anchor, the friend who balanced compassion with honesty. But even Maya's advice couldn't shake the gnawing suspicion inside her. She left the coffee shop with a hollow ache, the city's brightness dulled by the storm in her mind. Back at the office, Sienna spent the afternoon in a haze. She tried to lose herself in work, but the numbers on her screen blurred, replaced by the memory of Elias's tired eyes and the quick way he'd changed the subject when she'd asked about his weekend plans. Was she reading too much into it? Was her intuition just anxiety in disguise? Later that evening, Sienna returned home as dusk settled over Boston. The apartment was quiet except for the soft whirring of the dishwasher. She dropped her bag on the kitchen counter, staring at the half-finished bottle of wine from the previous night. As she poured herself a glass, she heard the front door creak open. Elias walked in, phone pressed to his ear. He offered her a distracted smile, then turned away, lowering his voice as he murmured into the receiver. Sienna watched him, her heart thumping. She caught fragments. "No, not tonight. I'll call back in a bit. Yeah, I know." He ended the call and set his phone face down on the counter. "Hey," he said, pecking her on the cheek. "Long day?" She nodded, searching his face for any sign of the man she'd known for 3 years. "Everything okay at work?" "Yeah, just the usual. Jasper's dropping the ball on a couple of accounts, so I'm picking up the slack." His eyes flicked to his phone, then back to her. "Sorry if I've been distant. Things will calm down soon, I promise." Sienna wanted to believe him, but as she sipped her wine, her gaze drifted to the kitchen table, where Elias had left his wallet and a crumpled receipt from a boutique florist she didn't recognize. Her stomach tightened. She waited until Elias stepped into the shower before she reached for the receipt, smoothing out the creases. The date was yesterday. The total was higher than she'd ever seen him spend on flowers, and the delivery address wasn't theirs. Sienna's thoughts raced. Who was he buying flowers for? She sat on the end of the bed, staring into her closet. Her mind flashed through possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. Was it for a client, a colleague, or something worse? When Elias emerged, hair damp and face freshly shaven, Sienna tried to keep her voice steady. "Did you send flowers to someone yesterday?" He blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "Oh, yeah, to a client. One of our big accounts closed, so I sent a thank you arrangement." "Why?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just saw the receipt." He smiled, stepping closer. "See? Nothing to worry about." But the smile didn't reach his eyes, and Sienna's doubts only grew. If she was truly overreacting, why did her heart tighten every time he brushed off her questions? That night she lay awake, listening to the city's muted sounds, distant sirens, a dog barking, the wind rattling the window pane. She reached for her phone, scrolling through their shared credit card statement. A string of unfamiliar charges caught her eye. Another florist, a restaurant she'd never heard of, a rideshare trip to a neighborhood she'd never visited. Sienna's breath caught. She closed her eyes, her chest heavy. Was this the proof she'd been looking for? Or was she piecing together a story that wasn't there? The next morning, as she left for work, she bumped into Mrs. Lords Carmichael, her elderly neighbor who always seemed to know everyone's business without ever being intrusive. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Carmichael called from her doorway, cardigan wrapped tight. "You look tired. Everything all right?" Sienna forced a smile. "Just didn't sleep well." Mrs. Carmichael's eyes crinkled with concern. "Sometimes our hearts know things before our heads do." "Don't be afraid to listen to yourself." Sienna blinked, surprised by the uncanny resonance of the words. She thanked Mrs. Carmichael and hurried on, thoughts swirling. At lunch, she called Maya again, her voice trembling. "Maya, I found receipts. And weird charges. Maybe I'm not just imagining things." Maya listened carefully. "That does sound odd. Look, trust your instincts, but don't jump to conclusions. You know how easy it is to misread situations when emotions are high. If you need help, I'll come over tonight. We'll figure it out together." Sienna felt a surge of gratitude. "Thanks, Maya. I don't know what to believe anymore." After work, Sienna lingered at her desk, fiddling with her phone. She wanted to call Elias, to demand answers, but the fear of what she might hear kept her silent. Instead, she opened their shared calendar and scrolled through the past few weeks. Appointments, canceled dinners, sudden business trips. The pattern was there, if you looked closely enough. Always a reason. Always an explanation. She pressed her forehead to the cool glass of her office window, watching the city pulse with evening light. Should she confront Elias again? Should she demand the truth or trust his reassurances? Was her intuition trying to protect her, or was she sabotaging something good out of fear? That night, as she and Elias sat across from each other at dinner, him scrolling through emails, her pushing food around her plate, Sienna finally broke the silence. "Can we talk?" Elias looked up, surprised. "Sure, what's up?" She hesitated, searching his face. "I want to trust you. I really do. But lately, I feel like you're not telling me something. I know work is busy, and I know I can get anxious, but I can't ignore how I feel." For a moment, Elias just stared at her. Then he reached across the table, taking her hand in both of his. "Sienna, I promise, you have nothing to worry about. I love you. I know I've been distant, and I'm sorry. It's just a lot right now." She looked at him, tears stinging her eyes, wishing she could believe him. But his phone buzzed again, and he let go of her hand to check the screen, his expression unreadable. After dinner, Sienna retreated to the living room, settling onto the couch as Elias disappeared into the bedroom, still on his phone. She stared at the ceiling, the shadows shifting as headlights passed outside. Should she trust what she saw or what she felt? If you've ever been in Sienna's shoes, caught between trust and intuition, share your experience in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Sienna's story is just getting started, and your support means the world. Boston's skyline shimmered against the ink-blue dusk as Sienna Caldwell's car pulled up to the curb outside Elias's office building. The city throbbed with Friday night energy, horns blaring in the distance, clusters of students laughing on the sidewalk, the distant clang of a streetcar. But for Sienna, everything felt muted, as if she were moving through a dense, silent fog. She sat for a moment in the driver's seat, fingers drumming the steering wheel, the warmth of the takeout bag on her lap pressing against the chill that had settled in her chest. Her mind replayed the events of the last week, Elias's guarded glances, his rushed explanations, the way he'd clutched his phone to his chest as if it were a secret he couldn't risk losing. She could still hear his voice from that morning, gentle but firm, telling her she was reading too much into things. But tonight, her heart refused to be soothed. So here she was, restaurant bag in hand, determined to surprise him at work. Part of her hopeful for a mundane explanation, part of her bracing for a truth she felt unprepared to face. She took a steadying breath, gathered her courage, and stepped into the lobby. The building was mostly quiet at this hour. The receptionist, a young man with headphones around his neck, looked up from his phone with mild interest. Sienna offered a polite smile and made her way to the elevators, her heels clicking on the gleaming tile floor. The air inside the elevator was cool, tinged with the faint scent of office cleaning supplies. On the 12th floor, the doors slid open to reveal a corridor lined with glass-fronted offices, most dark, a few still glowing with the pale light of desk lamps. The city lights spilled in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, reflecting off steel and glass and illuminating the quiet hum of after-hours work. Sienna hesitated, suddenly self-conscious, then squared her shoulders and walked toward Elias's office. Just past the break room, she nearly collided with Jasper Patel, Elias's co-worker, who was shuffling a stack of folders under one arm and typing furiously on his phone with the other. "Oh, Sienna! Hey!" Jasper's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise and then a warm grin. "Didn't expect to see you here. Late night delivery?" Sienna forced a smile, hoping her voice sounded casual. "Yeah, I thought I'd bring Elias some dinner. He's been working so late these days." Jasper laughed, lowering the folders. "Yeah, he's been pulling some marathon hours. The guy's determined, but, it'll be worth it. He wants everything perfect for—" Jasper paused, catching himself, his eyes darting away for a split second. "Well, never mind. I shouldn't spoil anything." A strange sensation washed over Sienna, like the floor shifted beneath her feet. "For what?" she pressed, her voice careful. "Is there something going on?" Jasper's cheeks colored, and he shifted the folders awkwardly. "Oh man, I thought you knew. Elias is, well, he's been working on a project, something special. He's put a ton of effort into it. I really shouldn't say more. I'd hate to ruin the surprise." Sienna's heart thudded erratically. Project? Surprise? For a moment, her suspicion gave way to confusion. She struggled to piece together Jasper's words with the weeks of anxiety, the late nights, the secrecy. Before she could press further, the door at the end of the hall opened, and Elias stepped out, his suit jacket slung over one arm, phone pressed to his ear. He looked tired, but somehow lighter than she'd seen him in days. When he spotted Sienna, his expression flickered from surprise to something softer, a warmth that, for a moment, made her feel foolish for ever doubting. "Hey," he said, ending his call and pocketing his phone. "What are you doing here?" Sienna held up the takeout bag, her voice a mixture of uncertainty and hope. "I thought you'd be hungry. You've been working so late." Elias's eyes crinkled at the corners. "You didn't have to do that. But I'm really glad you're here." Jasper gave a little wave, mumbling something about deadlines, and ducked into another office, leaving them alone in the softly lit corridor. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Sienna's mind raced. Images of late-night texts, unexplained absences, the gnawing suspicion that she'd tried so hard to ignore. Now, standing here with Elias in the hush of the empty office, the weight of her doubts pressed down on her. She took a breath. "Elias, can we talk? Really talk?" He nodded, concern flickering across his face. "Of course. Let's go inside." They stepped into Elias's office, a tidy space, the windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. Papers were stacked neatly on the desk. A mug of cold coffee sat beside a half-open laptop. Sienna set the food down, her hands trembling slightly. She turned to face him, searching his eyes. "I know you said I was overreacting, but I can't shake this feeling. You've been distant, distracted. There are things you're not telling me. I overheard you on the phone last night, and I saw some strange charges on our card. I need you to be honest with me. Are you hiding something?" Elias's jaw tightened, and for a moment, he looked away, studying the city lights. When he turned back, his expression was open, vulnerable. "Sienna, I haven't been fair to you," he said quietly. "You're right. I have been hiding something, but it's not what you think." She felt her breath catch. A mixture of relief and fear flooded her chest. "Then what is it?" He ran a hand through his hair, searching for the right words. "You remember a few weeks ago when you mentioned how hard this year's been? How you missed your friends and family? How work's been relentless? I wanted to do something for you, something special. So I started planning a surprise for your birthday." Sienna blinked, caught off guard. "My birthday?" Elias nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I've been working with Jasper and Maya to put something together. A surprise party. I know you don't like big celebrations, so I wanted to make it personal. Just your closest friends, some of your favorite places around Boston. I've been sneaking around because I wanted it to be perfect. I even opened a separate account to keep it secret. That's what the charges were for. The calls, the late nights. It was all about coordinating with everyone, making sure you wouldn't find out. Sienna stared at him, her mind racing to catch up. The secrecy, the whispered phone calls, the tension in his shoulders. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place. She remembered Maya's odd evasiveness, the way Jasper changed the subject when she'd asked about Elias's work. It was all for her. A wave of emotion swept through her. Relief, guilt, gratitude, and something like awe. Tears pricked at her eyes, and she pressed a hand to her mouth, suddenly overwhelmed. "Oh, Elias, I thought—" Her voice broke, and she shook her head, unable to finish. He stepped closer, his gaze gentle. "I know. I should have told you. I wanted to give you something good, something that would make you feel seen. I never meant to make you worry." The silence that followed was thick with all the words they hadn't said. Sienna felt the tension drain from her shoulders, leaving behind a bittersweet ache. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I let my fears get the better of me. I thought I was losing you." Elias reached for her hands, his touch warm and grounding. "You never have to be afraid of that. I love you, even when I'm not great at showing it." She let out a shaky laugh, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I guess my heart knew something was going on. I just didn't know what." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Your heart's usually right, even if the details get a little fuzzy." They stood together in the quiet glow of the office, the city spread out beneath them. Sienna felt the last of her doubts dissolve, replaced by a new, tender certainty. After a moment, she pulled back, wiping her eyes. "So, Maya was in on it?" Elias grinned. "She's been the best co-conspirator. She even made me swear not to tell Jasper too much. He's terrible at keeping secrets." Sienna laughed through her tears, a weight lifting from her chest. "I can't believe I thought, well, you know." He squeezed her hands. "It's okay. I should have realized how it looked. Next time, I'll be better about not making you feel shut out." She nodded, a smile breaking through. "Maybe next time you could just surprise me with less secrecy?" He chuckled. "Deal." As they gathered their things, Sienna glanced at the city lights outside, their reflection shimmering in the glass. She realized she'd spent weeks doubting herself, questioning her intuition. But now, standing here with Elias, she saw the truth. Her instincts hadn't been wrong. There was something beneath the surface, just not what she'd feared. As they left the office together, arm in arm, Sienna's thoughts lingered on the lessons she'd learned. Maybe she hadn't been overreacting. Maybe her heart just needed to trust that the truth would find its way to the light, even if it came wrapped in unexpected forms. And as the elevator doors closed behind them, a quiet certainty settled inside her. She didn't have the full picture yet, but for the first time in weeks, she was ready to see what came next. The city outside hummed with the quiet energy of evening. Inside Elias's office building, the fluorescent lights cast a gentle glow on polished floors and glass walls. Sienna stood near the elevator, her hand still clutching the takeout bag she'd brought, a hopeful gesture that now felt both unnecessary and strangely comforting. Her heart was racing, but not from suspicion anymore. From relief, from embarrassment, from love. Elias took a step closer, his expression softer than she'd seen in weeks. "Sienna, I'm so sorry I made you worry," he said quietly. "I should have told you something. I just wanted it to be perfect." She let out the breath she'd been holding. The tension that had kept her on edge for days seemed to unspool all at once. The city lights outside were blurred by her tears, but she smiled, her nerves finally unraveling. "Perfect isn't secrets, Elias," she said gently. "It's honesty. Even if it ruins the surprise." He nodded, reaching out to take her hand. "I know. I let the surprise get in the way of what matters most." Jasper, having realized he'd accidentally spilled the beans, gave an awkward wave. "I'll, leave you two to talk. Sorry again, Sienna, and happy early birthday." He disappeared down the hallway, leaving Sienna and Elias in the quiet. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was a space for something new. Sienna looked at Elias, really looked, and saw the tired lines around his eyes, the way his shoulders had been tense for weeks. She realized, maybe for the first time, how hard he'd been trying to make things right for her, even if it meant carrying the weight alone. "I thought you were hiding something from me," she admitted, her voice trembling. "And you were. But not what I feared." He squeezed her hand. "I never wanted you to feel alone in this. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now. I made you question yourself, and that's on me." Sienna nodded, a gentle warmth blooming in her chest. She thought of Maya's words, how relationships live in the space between trust and vulnerability. She'd spent so much time doubting her intuition, blaming herself for being sensitive, when really, her feelings had been a signal that something needed attention. And now, finally, she understood. Her instincts weren't about catching a lie. They were about needing connection, honesty, being seen. They walked out of the building together, stepping into the crisp autumn air. The city was alive with the bustle of Friday night, headlights threading through the streets, laughter spilling from open restaurant doors. Sienna tucked her hand into Elias's arm, feeling lighter with every step. They passed by a tiny bakery, its windows fogged with warmth. Elias paused, looking sheepish. "I know it's not the fancy dinner I was planning for your birthday, but want to go in and split a cupcake?" She laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep and real. "Only if it's red velvet," she joked, nudging his side. Inside, the bakery was golden and full of gentle chatter. They found a small table by the window. Over 2 red velvet cupcakes and mugs of steaming tea, Sienna and Elias really talked, about the past weeks, about their hopes, about the unspoken things that had built up between them, about how easy it was to get caught up in protecting each other from disappointment, and how hard it could be to just let themselves be human, messy, imperfect, but together. Elias reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "I promise, no more big secrets. Next time I want to surprise you, I'll at least give you a heads up that I'm being weird for a good reason." She grinned. "Deal. And I promise I'll listen to my heart, but also to you." Outside, the city lights flickered in the puddles left by last night's rain. Sienna felt the weight in her chest replaced by something softer. Hope, maybe, or just the simple joy of being understood. A week later, Sienna's birthday arrived. When she walked into her apartment that evening, she was greeted by a chorus of voices. Maya, Mrs. Carmichael, Jasper, and a few more friends, all gathered in the glow of candles and fairy lights. Elias stood at the center, looking nervous but proud. Sienna's eyes filled with happy tears as she realized the scope of what he'd been planning. A night of laughter, stories, and real connection. Maya pulled her into a hug. "See?" she whispered. "You weren't overreacting. You just cared." Mrs. Carmichael handed Sienna a plate of homemade cookies. "Never doubt your instincts, dear," she winked. "They're usually right, even when they lead you down unexpected paths." The party was cozy and full of warmth. Music drifted through the apartment, mingling with the aroma of cinnamon and vanilla. Sienna looked around at the faces, her chosen family, her partner, her friends. She felt a swell of gratitude for all the confusion, the anxiety, the lessons learned. Later that night, as the last guests said their goodbyes and the apartment settled into peaceful quiet, Sienna and Elias curled up together on the couch. The city outside was hushed except for the distant sound of a saxophone somewhere down the street. Elias gently brushed a stray curl from her forehead. "I know I messed up, Sienna, but I hope you know how much you mean to me." She smiled, her hand finding his. "I do. I really do. And I trust myself a little more now, too." He looked relieved, and something unspoken passed between them. A new understanding, fragile, but strong, the kind that comes only from facing discomfort together and choosing to grow. As she closed her eyes, Sienna thought about how easy it would have been to ignore her intuition or to let suspicion take over entirely. Instead, she'd chosen the harder path, to question, to listen, and to seek the truth, even when it was uncomfortable. That's what real trust is, she thought. Not blind faith, but honesty, even when it's messy. And maybe, she decided, that's what love is too. If you've ever felt like Sienna, torn between trusting your instincts and trusting the people you love, know that you're not alone. Sometimes, what our heart tells us isn't about fear or suspicion, but about a deeper need for connection and honesty. What about you? Have you ever been in a situation where your intuition clashed with what others were telling you? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories. Share them in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, give it a like so we know you want more real-life stories just like this. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of our next journeys together. Remember, trust yourself, trust those you love, and never be afraid to have the honest conversations that bring you closer. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next story.